My name is Artem Henriksson. I'm the Executive Director of Inner Development Goals. And I think we all recognize the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. We recognize the beautiful logotypes, the symbols, and we all know that the world does not consist of 17 boxes or challenges, but we have agreed together, all nations, that this is what makes sense and that we want to work together on to create a more flourishing and sustainable future for all of us. The trouble is, we're moving too slowly, and it's also us, the people, who are in the way. We're not collaborating or making the changes fast enough to progress on these complex challenges. And our question was, if we have succeeded to reduce the complexity in the outer world to 17 external goals, the global goals, could we do the same thing with our interior and see if we can make sense of it in more comprehensible ways so that we can truly work on the skills and shifts that needs to happen within us individually and collectively so we can be more effective in facing the global challenges? This was our question when we created the Inner Development Goals, that is a non-for-profit open source initiative that has been working with thousands of researchers, experts, practitioners to create a framework. And we have used the same designer and the same design company that has been working with the Sustainable Development Goals has been helping us to create the logo and are now working on simplifying the 5 dimensions that we have found and 23 skills, and how we can work with this on both individual, collective, and government levels. So I hope that we, in these short minutes, can learn a little bit more about the framework, the Inner Development Goals framework, but also some of the tools that we have just started gathering to promote and develop these 23 skills. So the 5 dimensions, 5 big buckets, we could say, of human development that we found when we looked in phase 1 on the big survey is our relationship to ourselves, our being, how we can think better, more systemically, how we relate to ourselves, to others, and of course the world, but also how we collaborate and how we enable change and drive change. And if we dive into the first one, the relationship to self and our being, one of the skills here is the inner compass. And we know from the science of ACT, acceptance commitment training, that if we can clarify our values, it's easier for us to navigate in complex decisions and also handle stressful situations. It gives us something to give us a direction and meaning when everything else is chaotic. It helps us recover better from stress or setbacks. And the question for you is it clear for you what are your 5 to 10 most important values? Have you defined them? And are you taking actions in accordance to that? Because of course, to live in accordance to our action, to be living with integrity and authenticity, of course also involves some psychological pain. And how do we relate to that pain when we learn, when we act in the world? Are we there fully present with it? So here are some of the skills in the being section and how we relate to ourselves in change, maybe in general. If we look at this thinking dimension, a lot is about going from linear thinking to more systemic thinking and away from either or to both and at a larger sense. And of course it involves both critical thinking but also seeing the system, seeing the complex relationships between the usually many factors, maybe even 20 or 30, and how can we be better at doing that and taking perspectives on the problems that we need to solve. One of the insights here for me is that if we take perspective taking, is that there are three parts of it. The first one is to take perspectives yourselves. The second one is to seek perspective from others. And the third one is to coordinate perspectives. And what I learned is that perspective taking and seeking do not always correlate. Which basically means that if you're good at taking many perspectives on a problem, you might experience that you have a lot of different angles on this problem. And you will not be as prone to seek perspective or input from others. Which is, of course, quite challenging because all your perspectives will be based on your own values, on your own glasses that we all are wearing. And it's only when we start to seek perspective that we can be really effective in coordinating perspective and seeing the whole system. And this is really a skill. There are thinking skills that we can develop tremendously if we work with that. Also our long-term orientation and visioning, our sense-making, that is not tied to our IQ, but tied to how well we think and see the system that is in front of us. If we look at the relating category and how we care about others and the world, here we almost need to work against our human nature because we humans are problem solvers and we're many times focusing on problems and what have gone wrong or could go wrong or what others could do better. And this is sometimes leading us astray and not creating the strong and healthy relationships that we need or feel good about having. So we would, from my point of view at least, really need to work more with appreciation, gratitude, and seeing both what do I appreciate and care about in others, and giving that feedback, what we think is good and what we think works well. And there are some studies showing that the most effective leaders have a much larger percentage, maybe even 5-to-1, in how much they look at the things that are good and that they would like even more of, rather than just being critical. And of course, this also helps us with focusing on the more challenging parts that are not working so well, and empathize and feel compassion when people do something that is wrong or that is not working. And the more we can feel compassion and empathy towards ourselves and the mistakes that we make, the better we can handle that in relationship to others and not put blame, but rather see how we can solve the problems and issues that we have at hand. If we continue to the dimension of collaborating, there is a lot that we can work on to improve how we actually work together. One of the things is increasing the level of trust that we have in our teams, working with psychological safety by maybe just as simple as letting people check in and making their voice heard before we start the meeting, to just say what they're bringing with them or what they think is important to get out of during the meeting. And just by doing that, we get many people who would not speak, who are maybe more introverted, to actually raise their voice when we're solving problems. But also getting a little bit more of relational depth, that we know each other properly. We talk about our strengths and weaknesses, and that by increasing the level of trust we have in the team, we also increase the level of strategic and depth of problem solving, going to the root causes that we can have when we operate together. And this is, of course, even more challenging and even more important in teams cross-functionally, across different values, worldviews, cultures, to work with this and have both an understanding of our own biases and perspectives, but also bringing in and embracing the other perspectives. And paradoxically enough, this is connected again to the personal values. The more clear I am about myself in my being, the easier it is for me to collaborate and relate in healthy ways to others and not just find them strange. And if we look on the acting dimension, there are a few skills that we usually subscribe to individuals. And here there is an important insight that inner development does not always mean individual. We grow together, and the culture in which we're in is really, really important in how we function. If we allow ourselves to be courageous, creative, or if we feel hope and continue even when it's hard, if we have the grit, or if we give up when things get difficult. When it comes to perseverance, that I find many times hard, especially in projects with very long time horizon, a very simple tool that can help us is to both plan for what we really want to see and what are the effects if we would all not see, for example, human development as a nice add-on, but see it as the fundamental building block in healthy organizations and democracies. What would the positive effects be of this if all of us were working with these skills and integrating them? But also being realistic about the challenges and risks and what could happen, and to actually think through what can we do to avoid some of those risks or challenges in whatever initiative we're working with. But also, what can I do if some of these risks or challenges would materialize and become true? What can I do then? So not to have this abstract fear or worry, but rather have a few strategies that we have been working on. So in order to really manifest many of these skills and bring them with us in our projects, we both need to, of course, build these capacities in ourselves, but it's also a question of culture and how do we support each other in this building of skills, testing out new initiatives, and sometimes disturbing the old ways of doing things. So to summarize, we've been speaking about the 5 dimensions and 23 skills of human development. And just like we globally have agreed on the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, and it helps us stay engaged and work with that together collaboratively, we think that if we start working with inner development at scale, and the journey has just begun here, we can share our best methods and practices, and we can work on collaborating and identifying the ways in which we can grow and accelerate towards the Sustainable Development Goals. I invite you to join our gatherings monthly. You can find them on the web. Also our yearly summit that is in October in Stockholm. And co-create with us, give us input on the framework, on the methods, and join the journey of co-creation at innerdevelopmentgoals.org. I hope to see you there.